I got William Reid on today from DeVore Capital out in Florida. We're going to be diving into his work in the ministry, helping men in getting over substance abuse and a bunch of other little things.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. So we meet weekly, whether it's substance, it's alcohol, it's drugs, depression, it's pornography. It's, there's so many different things that can keep us trapped in bondage. It's getting to the underlying root of that. I take individuals down a journey where we take blocks of time, write down every memory that you have, good or bad. And then we began having very, very close-knit, detailed conversations about every single one of these events in their life. The issue is never the thing that they put on paper. It's the byproduct of this event that happens, that takes place. Now, the one thing that we have as human beings is we have the ability to pick up a shovel and make the bottom deeper. But
wow, that's a good quote. That's a good quote. Hey everybody, how are you? Justin Brennan in for another amazing podcast. I got William Reid on today from DeVore Capital out in Florida. And what's really cool is not so much what he does professionally, but what we're going to be diving into is his work in the ministry and also, helping men quite a bit in getting over quite a, substance abuse and a bunch of other little things. So that's really, I think, what he's passionate about, what he can talk a lot about, and probably help a lot of people on this podcast today beyond just, hey, this is what we're doing with construction and roofing and capital and building and all of that, which is great. But it's really diving a few layers deep and getting into the real passions that Will has. So welcome to the show, Will.
No, thank you very much, Justin. It's a blessing to be here, man, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. We've been planning this for a while. Our mutual acquaintance, Kate, has, she's like, you got to meet Justin. And I think we met in Vegas earlier this year, and been looking forward to it.
Yeah, am I mistaken? Didn't you were also down at the Patrick Bet-David thing in Florida, correct? Or was that Scott?
We were, yes. We were all there. We brought our whole team. Yeah. I think we brought 17 people with us for the vault.
That's incredible.
Down in
I would
West
love
Palm.
to be able to take, do kind of what you did, what Andy Elliott and those guys did down there, and bring in their massive teams and all of that. That's definitely a goal of mine. Are you going back this year, 2025, to? I guess it's in Tampa Bay or Orlando. Or I think it's Orlando.
It's in Orlando. I think they originally were going to be in Tampa, but then they moved it for fear of hurricanes. We're going to be back. We're the first event actually we're going to go to is SLS, the Sales Leadership Summit. We'll be there in, I believe it's April, and then we'll be back at the vault. We're in PBD's masterminds and BizDoc's masterminds, and Scott, our CEO, he is just so heavily invested in personal and professional development that he just brings the whole team with him whenever he can.
So with the different masterminds with PBD, we have Aaron, who's kind of our rep. When I say our, Kate and I's rep down there with PBD and his crew. There's different levels, right? He has his business consulting. Is that like a one-on-one, like super expensive? And then is the mastermind like reasonable? I'm just kind of curious on this. Or is it all like $4 million?
I don't think it's all $4 million. We have seen an ROI. It's not cheap. But we have seen an ROI, so it's worth it. But I think PBD would appreciate me telling you to contact your rep. And they could probably get you some up-to-date pricing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and Aaron's awesome, and going down there, getting the CEO tickets. And I started doing this a few years ago, where I wouldn't just go to conferences anymore. And it was a great piece of advice I got from a pretty well-to-do business person. He says, Justin, rather than going to like 10 conferences, right, and just general admissioning all of them, pick 4, right? Good ones. Some maybe are industry-based. Other ones are not industry-based. And you're going to buy the best ticket. Period. Because it's not about the conference. You may pick a piece of it, tidbit here or there. It's the rooms you're going to be in, right? You need to get surrounded by the doers and the shakers and all that stuff that go on there. So pay to play and get the most expensive ticket at these things, because if you want to really, truly move your needle, get around the people. And yes, that costs money. It doesn't matter. Yeah. So that's what we did.
Absolutely.
And it's made a massive difference. Massive. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. There's like who do you want to be next to, right? You want to be next to, and not that there's anything wrong with $250 general admission, but the individual who's investing 10, 15,000 for the access, right? Because the information is the information, right? You can go on YouTube and watch 20 hours worth of any influencer, any business development leader, and you can get the information, but you can't get that same level of access. So it's definitely worth it if you're going to step in to do it. I think where a lot of people go wrong, even at like general mission level, is there's just so much. Like the vault was 4 days of just intense communication, and you're never going to soak it all in, right? But we've been 3 times. We've been twice, excuse me. So this will be our 3rd year. And, everybody that went the first time, there was, they're like, oh, a lot of this repeats itself. So my question back to them was, well, what did you do with it? Right. So if you,
that was going to be my first thought in my brain is, man, if you're just going down there and taking that big ass booklet that he gives you and go through it and then be like a robot, but then you leave the conference. And if you're not kind of summarizing it on the plane ride back or wherever it is you're going, because that's what I do on the plane ride back. I'm taking that booklet and going through it and implementing probably 2 to 3. I don't try and take a ton, 2 to 3 major things that I'm like, great, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And then I put it into my task list. So when I get back, boom, it goes. And that's been the biggest difference for me, is just taking action immediately. And not trying to take the whole booklet and put it in, implement it, but take bits and pieces and 2 or 3 pieces of it.
Yeah, we did a team debrief every night while we were at the conference, and then we've taken pieces from it and periodically have revisited those, through the end of 2024, and then we participated in the business planning workshop here a couple of weeks ago. So, okay, here's your vision, here's your plan, this is how you're going to do it. And it's like, all right, well, we can't do all things, but we can get really good at a few things and build upon them, get the processes in place. So as we continue to grow the organization, we have a solid foundation that we just keep adding layers to.
Yeah. So when you guys do your business plans, I'm curious about how people do this because there's such a psychology to it. Do you guys do a 12-month business plan, or have you read the book 12-Week Year?
I have not read that book, 12-Week Year. But what we do is at the end of 2025, where do we want to be, with each division? And then we back it down. Okay. All right. So what activity am I going to need to do this week to get to where we want to end 2025? Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah, because you should read the book. It's called 12-Week Year. Speaking of it, one second. Because this is this blew my mind when I read this book. This guy right here. And no, I'm not getting paid by them. But this book changed everything in terms of how I do business planning. And the reason why is because we are taught by nature to do this business plan that's a year. Like you said, look at the end of 2025 and work your way back and blah, blah, blah. Nothing necessarily wrong with that. But then we create these business plans that are all great and we're done with them and we look at them, but sometimes they go right in a drawer and then we don't look at them again until December of 2025. So what they found out is psychologically, the process that people should be going through is the 12-week year, which is basically 4 years in one. So your year is 90 days. It's not December 2025. It's March 31st, 2025. What does the next 90 days look like? And we're going to have certain goals. And then, like you said, you back into those goals through tasks. And that way you execute, because it's like anything. You give somebody a year, what do they take? A year. You give somebody a month, what do they take? A month. You give somebody a week, what do they take? A week. So we know that if you can create urgency, FOMO, and kind of this idea of, oh, shoot, we got to actually complete these things by March 31st, not December 31st. Then you basically build 4 years in one. And they say it's unbelievable. So, you guys do what you want, but it helped us tremendously because now we're actually going after, no, our year ends March 31st. Let's go. That's year one. And then, oh shoot, now we got
Right.
April, May, June. We got June. Shoot, we got to go. And it's not like, oh, okay, we'll look at it, and oh shoot, it's September. Shoot, we should get that done. Right.
Yeah.
So it's
no, and I like that because you're absolutely right. Because when you start January, you have all the time in the world.
Right. Or you think you do.
Right.
Yeah.
You think you do. And then before you know it, just by nature of human nature, procrastination kicks in, and you've done absolutely nothing but thought about planning.
Right. I mean, your plan looks great. I used to do them. I used to have great business plans. They're all with data and numbers, and they looked great. And I mean, it was awesome, but they were all 12-month driven. And then it was advised to me, I had a mentor with me. They said, hey, go read this book and you tell me at the end of it what you think. And I read it and I came back going, oh my gosh, that makes, number one, so much sense. Number two, implementing it has created that urgency to where you're not going into it thinking you got 12 months. I mean, you're literally creating like a fake year, but it works.
Right.
It works because you're not, you're not getting into February because, quarters go quick. And all of a sudden you get you're like, crap, it's mid-February. We haven't done squat on our business plan. Well, that's because you thought you had till December, right? But no, you have another 45 days. Get rolling. Let's go. So it just helps the speedometer and create this kind of fake urgency, for you. So,
yeah. Well, that's where, so we're in the process of a multifamily development. It's going to be 9 townhomes, 18 doors, ground up construction. Beautiful. And my civil engineer has been dragging their feet for months.
Yeah.
And some of it's, understandable and some of it's not. So yesterday afternoon, I had to get him on the phone and I listen, okay, this is where we're at. There is no more time for excuses or delays. This is what I need. And this is when I need it by. Can you commit to that? Or do I need to find somebody else? You know, and they're like, oh yeah, we're so sorry. We're so sorry. Then they start adding in a bunch of extra things that they're not going to charge me for because they know they dropped the ball. Right. Yeah. But are they to blame or am I to blame? Right. It's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, we're showing grace. But it's like, okay, cool. It's the new year. I need this done.
Yeah. And it's hard through the holiday season. I always try and maintain pressure on things like that, giving the grace usually the week before and the week after the big holidays. Right. So, Thanksgiving, going into Thanksgiving and then a day or a few after. But I try and just keep the throttle because you're right. People could very easily shut down mid-November and then you don't talk to them until January 7th. And it just goes by 2 months in a heartbeat. And a lot of things need to get done sometimes at the end of each year. So, and I totally get the civil engineering side. I deal with our third-party consultants. We're finalizing one right now. And it's just, it's like you're not trying to micromanage people. You're just trying to keep the follow-up there, the kind, gentle follow-up. Hey, how are we doing on this? When can I have this by? I'm trying to accomplish this, blah, blah, blah. So you're hitting all the nails. That's good. Right. I love that.
Well, it's because the micro, we'll go back to PBD for a second. What does he say? Micromanage until you can trust, so it's until I trust you enough, I'm going to have to micromanage you. And it's hard for my brain to wrap around that because if I try my best and I'm not perfect, I'm a flawed human being. But if I say I'm going to do something, there's a reasonable expectation. Like with my CEO, like if I tell him I'm going to do a task, he knows that I'm going to do it. He doesn't need to come back to me. And I appreciate other human beings that when they say they're going to do something, they actually do it. And they do it in a timeline or faster than what they say.
Yeah. And when Patrick was talking about his number one thing in determining whether he, success, number one, but if he promotes people and puts them in position and wants to do business with them is reliability, right? He needs to be able to rely on people. And if you tell me you're going to do something, I don't want to micromanage you. right? I don't want to. But if you tell me you do something and then you don't, you're putting these little daggers in place quietly.
Right. Yep.
And then I'm like, oh, well, they said they'd do it by this and they didn't. Okay. You give them a couple of days grace and they did it. Okay. Fair enough. We'll give you another shot. Next time comes up. Oh, you missed that one too. So now you're giving me the sense of, I don't know if I can rely on you. That means I have to now still I don't trust. Like you said, I don't trust that you're going to execute.
Right.
And that's all it does. Yep. It's not that you're not good. Yeah. It's you're basically lying to me and lying to yourself by not fulfilling things. Right.
Yeah. Justin does great work. How many times have we said this about somebody? So-and-so, and as they're Justin on their bus, so-and-so does great work, but it takes them 2 months longer than it should. So
yeah.
Is it really that great? Because the time has, an impact.
Time's money
with anything. Yeah. Time is absolutely money. Time is the most. And we did a networking event here in the office this morning. We brought in some entrepreneurs and business leaders from around the city. And that was one of the things I said, listen, I know you have your goals and you have your vision and you have your plans, but how intentional are you going to be with today? Today is the most valuable resource that you have because you already have it. You're walking in it, you're breathing in it. So how are you going to use it to benefit your tomorrow? How are you going to use it to benefit the people around you, benefit your teams? Or are you going to wake up tomorrow, if you're blessed with the opportunity to wake up tomorrow, and be like, you know what, I really wasted yesterday. Right. That's,
and
the older I hear, the more I realize how much time I've wasted.
Well, no, when people tell me, oh, you have time. You even hear, I don't know if you know Gary Vaynerchuk. But he talks about it. He says, oh, dude, you have so much time. You're 55. You have so much time. And my response is, not really. Like, and if you go in with that mentality of like, oh, I don't need to get to it today. I can get to it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, not really. Because if you have that mentality going through life, man, you don't have the yesterday mentality of go, go, go. Well, the next thing you know, 3 months goes by and you don't do squat. Right. And you have this task list or this goal list or this plan list, but you don't execute because you just think you have time. Oh, well, you know what? It's not urgent today. I won't check it off my list. I'll get to it tomorrow.
Right.
That whole mentality. That
I think that's the piece. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's the piece of it. Like Gary, when he says that, often in the next sentence or the next couple of sentences, it's get started today.
Sure.
Right. Like and I get the premise, right? And I would say this way, you might have another 20 years. You might have another 30 years, but you absolutely have today. So get started today.
Right. Yeah. And don't, the concept of you procrastinating. And I think that's been the biggest thing is, what is your drivers? Because, money's good. It's a good motivation to get you started, but it won't keep you going. And this is what Patrick talks about, his 7 mountains, right? And the self-identity audit.
Right.
Because in motivation's great, but discipline's even better. But then I would even take it a step farther and say consistent discipline. Because, you're out there in Florida, you got this guy called Tom Brady that lives out there. And, when he went down to PBD, I don't know if you took this from him, but I knew within 15 minutes of listening to him talk on stage with Patrick Bet-David, the reason why he is who he is and why he succeeded the way he succeeded. In case it had nothing to do with his physical attributes. It had nothing to do with that. It's simply the 7 inches between his ears. That guy is so ruthlessly, consistently disciplined, right? With the task daily. That's it. And he just outlasted. Like people would do it for 4 days straight. He was 5. They did it for 7. He was 8. They did it for 15. He was 3 weeks. Just up, just consistently disciplined. And he said, and people asked him, and I think it was Patrick said, well, were you doing it for the accolades, the money? Like, you can't be doing it. He says, no, Patrick. I said, I did it in fear of showing up to the locker room for my teammates and not being a good teammate, not being prepared. Like that was my fear. Like that is literally what drove me every single night and morning when I didn't want to do something, didn't want to get out of bed, didn't want to go to the gym, didn't want to do that, didn't want to watch film, didn't want to, like, when I had those thoughts, I then came behind that and said, oh crap, if I show up tomorrow, my teammates, I'm not going to be that for them. I can't let my teammates down. Like, that is what I took from Tom Brady. I'm like, no wonder that guy became what he became, because it had nothing to do, because he clearly wasn't the most gifted physically, but his brain and his just, I mean, ruthless approach to discipline and being consistent. I mean, would you agree with that?
No, I would absolutely agree with that. And that's, the other piece that I get with the guys like Brady is when they get an opportunity and they don't want to waste it. Right. So they're willing to go the extra mile, put the disciplines in place, be consistent with the things that they need to do to honor the opportunity that they have. Right. Because so very few people make it to that level. Even in business, so few entrepreneurs make it, to that, 50, 100 million, $150 million level. Right. And when you find these hyper successful people, you will find that one common trait in all of them is they have a consistency to the disciplines in which they are trying to master, so they can, hold on to that opportunity. Not like as if it's an idol, but they are so rare.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it any better. That was perfect. That's going to be a great snippet. That was perfect. So, like, jumping into your personal kind of life and the things that you're super passionate about outside of the business, tell me about the ministry and your attachment. I guess, where did faith come into your life first and foremost? Was it family, born into it, and then, or did you find it through other means?
Yeah, no, it was other means. I didn't grow up in the church, as many people say. I connected with a small group of friends when I was in high school, and they were going to a little small church, and that was kind of like my first exposure. But one of those friends, his father was a good man. He was a good man. He was a good father. He seemingly, he led his family well. He was involved in the church, and he had just made such an impact on me that even for years later, when I went astray, I always kind of looked at him as, I would like to be him, and through a lot of mistakes. So I joined the Marines in 1998. Went to Afghanistan 2001, came back from Afghanistan. And prior to, I had just created such a dependency on alcohol that it just spiraled out of control. And, basically I drank.
Yeah. I mean, if you could give me an instant, like maybe a case.
Yeah. When I could. Yeah, when I could drink, I drank to excess, and that was pretty much daily for almost 10 years. Wow. 2005, I was arrested for DUI. Inside of that DUI, I crashed into an on-duty police officer. Wow. 2 years after that, I got pulled over, DUI again. So I had two DUIs within 5 years. In the process, I wrecked a motorcycle. I had another car accident. I was just making horribly bad decisions that were
you were out of control. It was out of control.
Yeah. I was definitely a menace to society, and I felt like I was a good person, but I wasn't living like a good person. And at the kind of my breaking point, we talk about the bottom. I was moments away from taking my own life. And in the course of that, like, I had been successful. I had, I bought my first house when I was 24 years old. I was making a, mid-range 6-figure income at, 24, 25, but I had lost it all because of the alcohol. And I just finished up the last court case, and, I avoided prison by the skin of my teeth. It was a blessing. And didn't think I had anything else to live for. And I was very close to, I was sitting in my house, which was empty. It was completely empty. It was now, pending foreclosure. This was, 2008, right after the bubble burst. And as I'm getting ready to end it, a friend of mine that I hadn't seen, one of those guys from high school, comes and he knocks on my door. And he's like, "Hey, man, I heard you're going through some stuff." Yeah.
Really? Like like that?
Yes, sir. Just
Wow.
like that. Just like that. And
do you think that's what stopped it?
No, man, I'm fine. It's 100% what stopped it. Because not only did he knock on my door to check on me, he put me in his truck and he took me to church.
No way.
And in that moment and in that service that he took me to, I had an encounter with God that I had never experienced before. And it was in that moment that I knew God was real. Yep. I knew God was real. I knew God had a purpose for my life. And what I had done with it up to that point wasn't that.
What was your experience?
It's hard to describe. When you can feel just an overwhelming sense of love and grace and compassion coming from someone you cannot see. It was so real. Think of that person in your life that you just love seeing as a kid, whether it's grandma or whoever, and you just know when Aunt Judy came by, she was going to give you the biggest hug and it just made you feel special. Take that and amplify it by 1,000,000. That's what I felt.
Wow. Huh. Was that at church or in the truck or when?
No, that was at church. And oddly enough,
I mean, Will, dude, the mere fact that you're sitting in your house about to take your life after going through what you'd gone through, AKA bottom, and a friend you hadn't seen in a long time randomly knocks on your door. And then that person identifies the things you're going through and says, "Get in my truck. You're going to church with me." Really? Yep. By the grace of whatever you want to call it, that's wild.
Yeah. And it was several years. It was several years later before and when I say, Justin, when I say I was ready, so I had taken my last $22 and I went to the store and I bought a case of beer. So it was me, a lawn chair, a case of beer, and my pistol. And I was sitting in an empty dining room. That's how close it was. So even after going through the court cases and the DUIs and all this stuff, you were still drinking. Yeah. 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 There was a brief moment in time where I was, and it wasn't, so this was different. This was not out of, I wasn't partying. I was medicating. I was so deeply hurt and broken from the circumstances in which I had created for myself. This is, I would love to say, I joined the military and Uncle Sam sent me to war and I came home and I had this problem, but my drinking started, a year and a half before I joined. Gotcha. It was just it was a catalyst, right? It was a culture. So it didn't help it any. But it was something that I really identified with, and it was very. So you
unhealthy. Go to church and you have this moment and this experience.
Yep.
Walk me through a month following that experience.
So a month following that experience, I had started doing, I was continuing my counseling because I was kind of court ordered to do some counseling. I had, so I started to do that. Started to get, now I'm sober. From that moment, I said, okay, I'm going to be sober. Really started to get a little more serious with the woman that would become my wife. She moved to Orlando. I followed shortly after. We got married, and part of my, restoration plan was I had to they wanted me to go to 2 AA meetings a week for the next uh, 3 years.
Okay.
And that was it was a condition of my court case, right? So I was able to get inside of a men's ministry inside of the local church, and they had kind of a faith-based recovery program that qualified both of those things. And I just started connecting with men that were a little farther along down the road, right? Mentors, disciple makers, whatever phrase you want to use. And and I was able to start to put together what I call to this day is like my little mini board of directors. Like I had one man who was strong in finances. I had another guy who was really strong in his faith. I had one guy who was a phenomenal father and a husband, and I had these 4 or 5
That's basically
men.
it's like your running mates. It's your running mates.
Yeah, that absolutely. And for years, man, I set boundaries so tight, and that's where my discipline today comes from, that, if it is not going to benefit me or my family or the organization in which I'm involved with, then I don't do it. And we went down, I went down this journey, with these men, and finally got healthy enough that, okay, God did not take me from where I was to where I am now just so I could be happy, right? It's like, so now I got to do something with it. And then that's what, took me into more of a mentor myself and more of a leader, so to speak.
Gotcha. Wow. What a beautiful story, man. Thanks for sharing. So now
Yes,
with
sir.
the ministry, what are you kind of overseeing, and then how are you helping? I presume, obviously, like you said, substance abuse, similar role that you probably went through, and kind of giving back through that, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. So we meet weekly in person. There's a group of us, and we range from 30 to 70 people, just depending on, the ebb and flow of what's going on, in the world with people's lives. And we help people because whether it's substance, it's alcohol, it's drugs, depression, it's pornography, it's, there's so many different things that can keep us, kind of trapped in bondage. So it's getting to the underlying root of that. And most people, it's like, what's your identity? So in our world, we believe that, you are a child of God, and you, when you are born again, you take on the identity of Jesus Christ himself. So how do I take a broken person down this journey to where they can have a similar experience to the one that I had, to where it doesn't take words, it's not quantifiable by a thesis statement, it's just, you just know it, and so that's what we try to do. I don't highlight obviously some people have more severe issues than others that require, mental health, treatment. They require, extended stay rehab facilities, and all of those things. But I don't, walk into an AA meeting. Hi, my name is Will, and I'm an alcoholic. You are absolutely not an alcoholic. You are a person that has a problem with alcohol. Stop making people identify for the things that they're doing wrong, and encourage them and equip them to identify with things that are going to motivate them and move them along in a positive direction in their life, instead of keeping them in this box. They know that they got 2 DUIs.
Changing that identity. Because it is critical. We don't even realize the subconscious damage that's done all the way from our childhood until we're adults through the subconscious. And you don't even recognize it until it comes up. I mean, to give you a perfect example, because I started hypnotic reprogramming, and that was last year, 2020. I call it 2023. And wow. Like, I don't even know where to start with it, other than I had no idea that this thing can work. Tapping into the subconscious and reprogramming it so that way your conscious can work with it. But, I learned so many things from why I had such a hard time asking people for help, why I thought things would always be hard for me, why I felt I was an underachiever. Like all these things that were very identifiable and subconscious in the brain that were then showing up and then like self-prophesizing and regurgitating itself over and over again to keep you in the same spot. Completely subconscious. So you don't even realize it's happening.
Right.
And so we're all identified. I mean, we literally will. To give you an example, like why I have hard time asking people for help. I mean, not so much anymore, but it still comes up a bit. But why and where it started. It literally started like in hypnosis. We figured it out. We took it to when I was 8 years old, riding in the back of my mother's Suburban after she picked me up from school, right? Elementary school. And my brother and sister were in the seat, right? 3 seats. They were in the second seat. And my mom was leaving my dad at that point. And so we drove past our house and I started freaking out and screaming and what's going on. And then my brother and my sister started picking on me and telling me, you know, shut up, don't ask for help. You know, you're going to be fine. Just relax. And then that exemplified. So from that moment forward, I stopped asking people for help. Right. And I just said, I'll do it on my own. Make sense? I had no idea.
Wow.
And this is identified in hypnosis. We reprogrammed it, sent it out. But it's the craziest thing, man. I never even thought that stuff was possible. But you got to get with a clinical,
but an event
a clinical a clinical hypnotist, I guess. Yeah, someone that knows what they're doing.
Yeah. Sure,
it's
not
wild.
Not the sideshow guy who's
no, you know,
no, for sure.
The guys that are up on stage
so
telling you to do funny stuff. Yeah, that's cute, but that's not how it works. No, you need a clinical hypnotist that knows how to reprogram, and then you got to be open to it. Quite honestly, you can't fight it. So you got to allow yourself. Yeah. Some people say I can't be hypnotized. Well, that's because you're not actually allowing your body to settle, and you're fighting it the whole time. So you got to allow you to drop and just kind of be vulnerable, I guess I would say. But it's wild. It works when you let it happen. It's crazy. Yeah. But that's helped tremendously.
I have people, obviously I've heard others say the same. What I like to have people do is, excuse me. So think about, like, you didn't get to where you're at today overnight. Right. And the same thing happens with bad things. You typically don't get to the place that I got to overnight. Right. It's a series of minutes that lead to days, that habits that form. And oftentimes, to your point, there are memories that you suppress, or you don't remember, or you just get older and you forget things or whatever. So I take individuals down a journey where we take blocks of time, write down every memory that you can have, that you have, good or bad. Right. And we do 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15. Yeah. And we do that all the way through up until where they're at now. So if they're 50, then that's where we stop. If they're 60, that's where we stop. And then we began having very, very close knit, detailed conversations about every single one of these events in their life. And every time it starts to spur other memories and other things, because it's never the issue. The issue is never the thing that they put on paper. It's the byproduct of this event that happens, that takes place. It's like, okay, cool. Now we know what we really need to work on. Right now we know where your lack of discipline comes from. Now we know why your fear of being loved well comes from. Now we know why, you're on your 17th marriage. We can identify these things. There's lots of different ways to, to help people kind of break free of that, for sure.
Yeah. And the key is having people open to being able to accept that and open to learning about themselves, being self-aware, having some self-accountability, being able to look in the mirror and take responsibility for things and want to better it. Right. I mean, that's where it starts. That's where it starts.
That's the big one. Cause it's like, Pastor Will, this is my problem, fix it. Oh, okay. Well, let's start with doing this. And then 3 weeks later, hey, I still have the problem. Well, did you do this, do this, do this? Well, no, I haven't got around to it yet. Well, okay. Well, you have to put in some effort to make yourself better.
Have you ever heard the term that, and this is very true, it's for everybody, including myself and you. We make our decisions, and you're doing it right now, every day, for the remainder of your hours today. based on either pain or pleasure, right? Pain or pleasure.
Okay.
And you'll make a decision when you get off this podcast and you go to lunch, not lunch, do this, do that, finish this task, don't finish that task, go home at this time, don't go home at that time, go to the gym, not go to the gym, do this, do that. You're going to make it based on pain or pleasure. You're just not realizing you're doing it. And if you ask most people, they'll tell you, oh, I do it on pleasure. Like I want to get towards something pleasurable. That's why I do a task or complete something or stay disciplined or whatever it is, right? Bullshit. Vast majority of people make their decisions based on pain, meaning they do it or don't do it, right? Based on pain to avoid something negative. That's why they actually do it, right?
Right.
Meaning if there was something that you really wanted to accomplish, like what is something you would really like to accomplish that you haven't been able to accomplish yet, and it keeps staying on your goals year after year? Will, is there something?
For me is probably the consistency in the gym is the thing that shows up all the time.
Is there a certain weight or metric that you would like to achieve by the end of this year?
I give it so little thought that I do. And I say that is, I just bought a treadmill 3 weeks ago. I used to run a lot, and I end up getting plantar fasciitis in my feet, so they flare up, and it hurts to run on the street, like I used to. That I can blame on Uncle Sam. Right.
So the point being is, you want to do it, right? It's a motivation and a goal. But the pleasure of what you will look like or how you will feel or what your life may be by getting in better shape, which you want to accomplish, is not enough to make you actually stay consistent with it. Correct?
Correct. Yep. 100%.
So that's pleasure. And that's the BS.
Yep.
But I'd be willing to bet you that if I said, Will, you're going to write me a $10,000 check and you're going to mail it to me today. And you're going to date it December 31st of 2025. And if you don't hit this, and this with your physical, I'm cashing that check.
Sure.
I'd be willing to bet your ass that you would be there. Or if there was something other that was super painful to you, whether it was family, kids, other things, something that I could pull away from you and create pain in your life if you didn't accomplish it. I guarantee you'd do it. No different than... Yeah,
the pain of losing the 10 grand.
Yeah, right. It's a lot of money. No different than you getting sober, right? There had to be enough pain, something that was there that you didn't want to feel anymore, that finally made you pivot, right? Because the pleasure of getting sober probably wasn't enough. You knew you needed to do it. You wanted to do it, but you just didn't do it. Yeah. But then there had to be enough pain at some point to say, you know what, I can't feel that anymore. I got to do this. And then you finally did it. Am I guessing or am I off track?
No, you're absolutely right. We talk about, what's the bottom, right? The bottom is usually that pain point. Now, the one thing that we have as human beings is we have the ability to pick up a shovel and make the bottom deeper. But
wow, that's a good quote. That's a good quote.
But you're right. Like for me, like if I would I like statistics, right? And I always said that I wasn't going to be one of those statistics. 70% of people that get a first DUI get a second.
Really?
Right. And then 40% of those that get a second will get a third. Right. The ratio of repeating the behavior is up. But I know that if it didn't stick and it didn't change, the next time that I ended up in handcuffs, I was going to go to prison.
There you go.
There would have been.
Is that like a 3
strikes thing? There would have been
no
way around it.
Yeah. Is that a 3 strikes?
Not a 3 strikes, not necessarily a 3 strikes thing, but it was just each time you get something like that, the consequences multiply.
Gotcha.
Right. So first time slap on the wrist.
Gotcha. It had finally reached a point where you knew that if it continued, your ass was going to jail.
Oh yeah. The second time. And I did a little bit, here and, with that, but, just talk about, in the context of dollars, right? My first DUI cost me 10 grand.
Yeah.
Right. My second one, like real dollars, cost me about $45,000. But what it also cost me was my car, my job, my home.
Wow.
Right. So at the time, we're talking 2005, 2006, I was making $125,000 a year. Right. Yep. And gone. So now it's 40. Right.
Yeah. It's far more than that. Not to mention your home, equity, everything else. Yeah. So this finally, because you remember 2008, 2009, they just held foreclosed properties forever. They finally got around to auctioning that thing off. They auctioned it for $13,000. God.
I had paid.
Yes, I was at that time. I was actually an asset manager for a lot of the major banks. Will.
Okay.
So I was the guy behind the computer screens once it got foreclosed. Managing assets around the country and then getting them ready for the market again. For realtors and the whole process. It was wild. It was the Wild Wild West, as you know, Wild Wild West.
I do. I had just started in the mortgage industry. I became a mortgage broker in 2007. So I'm the reason. Wow. I'm the reason the bottom fell out. It's 100% my fault.
You're right in the heart of that one. Countrywide or WAMU.
Man, we wrote. Man, we watch. I know you've seen The Big Short.
Yeah.
Every single one of those banks that they mentioned in that, I wrote loans for. Every single one of them. Countrywide, New Century, like every single one of them.
Yeah. No, it was a wild time. If you've been through it, and I think it's good if people have. It's actually one of my prerequisites for people that are in the industry. Is like, dude, have you been through the financial crisis? And if you haven't, then you need to just beware, and understand how things work and cycles and markets and things, because everything can repeat itself just in a different method, different way. So
I think it feels like it's much faster now.
Well, it is, because the velocity of money changes, right? And then you add on that with the speed of media, right? So because of the way media works, right? You're right. The velocity is so much faster because of social media. It's like boom, 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 and it's out there passed on to 400 million people. So the speed of it can really, really go. Can really go.
Yeah.
And the fear monger and the fear that can steamroll happens too. So, well, I love it, man. So obviously with the podcast that we have here, Abundance to Give, I mean, it's like perfect in theme, because, how has giving to the ministry, giving back to yourself, giving to others, and helping with the substance abuse and men and stuff like that, has that created abundance for you? I mean, at least fulfillment.
Yeah, absolutely. What it's consistently helped me do, it goes back to identity, right? You can talk to 10 men and you can ask them, who are they? And they'll tell you, real estate investor, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a mechanic, all of this. So you hear what they do, but you don't know who they are. This being involved in the ministry, helping people has helped me just stay grounded into who I am. And part of who I am is someone who wants to help other people have joy, and get to a place where they know their life has meaning and they're more than their paycheck. They're more than their mistakes. So yeah, it's taxing at times. Many times, like I officiated more funerals in 2024 than I did weddings. So wow. there is a weight that comes with it too. But even in that is being able to comfort a family that's experienced a loss because, they had a family member that just, couldn't break the addiction, or bought something that they thought was something else. And that was the last mistake they would ever make, so even in those dark times, there's there's a lot of blessing and there's a lot of opportunity to show love, to show to show grace, to be a support system. And it's just helped me tremendously, good, bad, or otherwise. I have been put here to help people be better.
And you're married?
I am. Yeah, we've been married 15 years. We have 5 children.
So tell me ages of the kids and boy, girl.
So 28, 21, 18, 9, and 8. And
okay, you got the gamut, so my friend.
Yeah, oldest is a boy, and the rest are girls.
Okay. What do you want them to say about you at your funeral?
Dad loved people.
Like that would be like the overriding theme when they're giving the eulogy, right? That would, yeah. That the dad loved people.
Yep. And because Dad loved people, Dad did this. And because Dad loved people, he did this. And because Dad loved me, he did this. Yeah. I would be fine if that was the only sentence spoken.
What would you say is your greatest fear?
That's a good question. We were actually talking about this not too long ago. And so let me go back, and I can tell you this with a story, because I know what it used to be, and I'm not sure that I have much that I am afraid of anymore. So I had a serious issue with my esophagus. That issue with my esophagus turned into a precancerous condition. Okay. The doctor said that once it turns to cancer, you got 5 years before you're in a box.
5 years for your what?
This was 3 years ago.
Okay.
Before you're dead.
How did you discover it, first of all?
So I had really bad acid reflux for many, 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 many years, and continuously, I wasn't sleeping, medications weren't working, and they started doing periodic endoscopies. So they're going in with the camera and they're looking at everything. And at one point, one of the endoscopes showed that I had this, this bad tissue inside of my esophagus. And start going down the road. Okay, is there a surgery? Is there what? Like, how do we fix this? Right. And I get most of my health care from the VA. God bless them. They have some challenges there. But we had agreed that, okay, here's the surgery that we can do. But you got to do these tests to see if you qualify. We go in for the last consult before the surgery, and the surgeon says, I'm not going to be able to do it for you, and here's the reasons why. So you're just going to have to be very careful, what you eat, when you eat, might need to do a liquid diet. And there was all these things like, listen, like my condition has gotten worse over the last couple of years. Every endoscopy shows that the spot is growing. And it was in that moment that I broke down and I realized like what my fear was. My fear was that I was not going to live long enough to see my children grow. Like I would not be here to walk them down the aisle. I would not be there when they bought their first house. I would not be there to see these milestones that are going to happen. And that fear of that, it just crippled me. And the process that I went through was, I pray a lot. I read my Bible a lot. I talk to my counselor a lot. I do all these different things. And, what I believe and what I said I believed was that our Father in heaven is a much better father to them and would be in my absence than I could ever be. I could say the words, but actually putting it into practical application when faced with an issue was really hard. Getting to a place where I could say those words and truly believe them was difficult. And when I did and could truly cry out that I knew that if he decided that I could not be here anymore, my children would be fine. I felt that same peace, that same joy, like we talked about earlier, and I was perfectly okay. I was no longer afraid of not being there for them. 30 days later, I get a phone call from the doctor. Hey, we've decided to go ahead and do the surgery. I said, okay.
Interesting.
So calls me up, puts me on the schedule for 2 weeks later. We go to the, pre-surgical check-in that morning. He's like, hey, I still think that it's kind of risky, so I'm only going to do this part. I'm not going to do the whole thing. Like, listen, man, do whatever you need to do. And then right before they came in with the anesthesia, he says, listen, it's worth the risk. If you agree, then I'm going to go all in and I'm going to fix as much as I can. And I said, yeah, man, do your thing. I'm cool either way. So they knocked me out. They rolled me back into surgery. They rearrange and make some modifications under the hood. And I woke up and I haven't had reflux since.
Wow.
The size of the damage.
Obviously diet can change a lot of that too, but you're right. I mean, it's you had a condition, right?
Yeah. And I had a condition that was unfortunately it was misdiagnosed initially back in 2007. So because it was misdiagnosed, they were treating it incorrectly, and the treatment method actually made it worse.
Of course. Of course it would.
So once I was able to find a team of doctors that would listen to what I was saying and not just try to throw more medications at me, we were able to get to a place where we're like, okay, cool. It's risky, but we can deal with it. And they went in, did what they needed to do, and it was on a Tuesday. I got out of the hospital the next morning, and I was just so happy that they did it. And I felt good. And part of the reason I felt good because I had anesthesia. So that was the best night's sleep that I had in 6 years, you know. But we got home, I took a shower, hobbled into church on a Wednesday night. They're like, why are you here? You just had major surgery. I was like, there's no place that I would rather be. We've been rocking and rolling ever since. But like I said, that was my biggest fear. That's
a great story. That's a great story. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on and taking time. I hope this was great for you too. And going to be incredible for the guests to listen to this, both on audio and then video on YouTube and stuff. And awesome. But where can people find you? That way, if they want to kind of reach out and find you.
Yeah, so we're on YouTube at The Will Podcast and on Instagram at I am Will 904. You can reach out to me at will@dvorecapital.com, and would love to connect with anybody that wants to talk faith, real estate, bettering yourself, whatever. I'm up to have conversations about everything. One thing before we do jump off of here, Justin, I do just want to tell one more story, and then I'll free up time. So I meet a lot of people, and I meet a lot of people that have, different levels of success than what I've had. I knew that you were a good man when I met you at the airport when we're flying out of Vegas. I briefly met you the day before. Kate made the introduction. We're sitting in the same terminal. We're taking different flights. Sit down. We sit next to each other. We start talking with one another. And you had your laptop open and you're working, and you showed me how you analyze a deal. I don't know if you even remember this.
Yeah.
But you showed me like, this is what I do and this is how I do it. And not only, and that's why I love following you and see what you are doing. Because a lot of times you just never know, are these people really, this level of investor that they say they are? Are they really doing the work? Or are they just repackaging a course that somebody else made or whatever? But it was in that moment that I knew that you were a good man, that you were genuine, and you were actually practicing what you teach other people to do. And I just thought that was amazing. And I just wanted to share that with you before we jump off of here.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. And I think you're right. There are, a lot of, I call it guru chasing. And, listen, they're trying to better themselves and stuff. And that was one thing I promised myself I never, ever wanted to do and I never felt that I could do it unless I'd actually done it.
Sure.
And then you hear people out there say, well, no, just get started and do it. You don't actually have to have completed it. And I said, well, yeah, I don't know, man. Cause I have a problem being a fraud, right? I mean, I just do. I can't come at it with passion and conviction if I haven't experienced it myself or been around it and seen other people experience, because I've been around it. So it would just be very, very difficult for me to come out and say all this stuff or be this way or teach people this stuff if it wasn't truly genuine and authentic. So yeah, because there's people that'll try and teach things, but you can figure it out real quick, right? I mean, you can figure it out real quick by just asking a few questions, depending on what they're doing and not. And it is what it is. People can smell it out pretty good. Hopefully, they don't screw people over before that happens. So.
Sure. Yeah,
I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, that's why I'm super excited to kind of spend some time and going to conferences like that. You meet great people, and that's why I pick 4 or 5 a year to go to, and I try and get the best ticket I can to be able to meet folks like you, and then go to PBDs and meet folks that are around there, and then from there, opportunities and connections, if you take advantage of them, right? You got to take advantage of them. So post-conference, you got to be able to reach out, take 2 or 3 people you met, and maybe take that relationship the next step.
Sure,
and see what can happen with it. Because if you do nothing, nothing happens, right? But try it, right? And see where, and lead with, there was a great guy I had on, and I spoke to Chris Collins, I think was his name. And he kind of analyzed me in this call, because this is what he does for a living. And he says, Justin, like, your identity, what I'm figuring out and talking to you, is you love to lead with service and relationships. For you, that is more important than the accolades. And I said, yeah, I feel like I get fulfillment from that. Sure. Like I honestly do. Like if I lead with great relationships first, in service first, I believe that law of reciprocity will pay itself tenfold. Sure. And it's very true. Is that, I mean, the money is secondary to me, even though it's important. The money's secondary to the feeling of servicing and creating a relationship in that. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it makes every relationship, attention is the modern day currency, but if that attention does not create relationships, then it won't last.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, it won't last. No, for sure. Yeah. It's good stuff.
Well, awesome, man.
I appreciate it.